Hey folks, welcome to a podcast about Catholic things. This is Eric, the ambassador of common sense, and I'm here with
Dan. I'm the ambassador of nonsense. Welcome, everyone.
And we got, I think, an interesting topic today. We're going to talk about the Spanish Inquisition. I'm not going to make a Monty Python reference because everybody else does.
Yeah.
Every other podcast I've listened to makes a Monty Python crack. So I won't talk about Monty Python.
Okay. But you've spent 30 seconds doing that.
I know. I'm just kidding. Anyway, the thing is, we're not going to hide anything here. We don't do Pope-splaining, and we don't really do church-splaining.
We don't do whitewashing. That's true.
Yeah. When we talked about Galileo, we were pretty straightforward. And yeah, there was an embarrassing moment there. At the same time, Galileo did not get charged and convicted of heresy and put to death for it.
True.
That didn't happen. So, it just, as I was researching this one, I was astounded at the misinformation that people just reported as if they had, the thing is, they reported it as if they had read it, as if they were reading it right now, as if, all of this information is referenced somewhere and backed up somehow. And so much of it isn't true.
Yeah. The Inquisition is one of those things that I like to, when people bring it up, I like to challenge them and say, I'll tell you what, you give me 5 facts, just 5 statements that you yourself know to be true about the Inquisition, and then let's go check them out.
I would say 3, 2 maybe.
Well, my thinking of 5, probably all 5 are false.
Yeah.
When you go to check that's the thing. The things people know about the Inquisition are generally false.
Yeah. The torture. I mean, they'll list torture devices that didn't exist in Spain at the time. Sometimes never have existed.
They were kind of invented by the modern mind.
Yeah. Some of them were invented in England, where they used it against Catholics.
England, yeah. The English were engineers of torture.
Yeah, they were good at it. Often they were invented in Rome, where it was used against Christians.
Oh.
Early Christians. So, it's just, I guess, here's the thing. If we start where really ought to be starting, you have to somewhat understand the times and the people and how they behaved. At the same time, you end up sounding like, people roll their eyes when okay, whatever. You just want to tell me that everybody used torture. Everybody did this, so it was okay for the church to do it.
Oh, right. That's...
but that's not only it. But that's a thing.
It is a thing.
That did happen throughout most of the world's history. Most governments used torture. And now, if we were to say one specific group used torture, would that make that group bad? Because if I said, hey dude, and point to anyone and say people in your family used torture because you came from this area at this time, people were using torture back then. You know what I mean? You can point to any group that existed back then and said, well, they used torture too. Everybody used torture. Yeah. Because it's a big part of the accusation, even though it's not true. It's just the fact that it's such a big part of the accusation gets on my nerves. Why? It's like, it's the same kind of person if you said, hey, look, Democrats are the ones who own slaves. They'd be like, well, that's them, the Democrats, not the new Democrats now.
Right. That's
even
exactly
though, it's this double standard. But, I guess we should talk about that era and how different it was than this era. Being that government and religion were tied together pretty pretty deeply. I mean, it's not like it's not like they both had the same roles, but they were both sort of after the same thing. I mean, the common good was what everybody was after. The church and the political movements of the time. You know, I mean, if there was a king, he wanted his kingdom to do well. He didn't necessarily always think about the peasants, but as a kingdom, he wanted it to do well, and so did the church.
Right. And the church supported the kings as what it saw as a necessary condition for the common good. And the kings supported the church likewise in similar manner. And of course, you know, in sometimes on both sides, support overstepped into presumption a little bit. Kings would, you know, presume to, say, appoint bishops, which they are often given permission to appoint bishops, you know, by the Pope, at least tacitly. But you know, the idea is that sometimes they came to feel like they were a little bit more in charge of the church than they really had a right to be. And maybe sometimes vice versa too.
Right. And the thing is that the more they got involved with each other, the real problem is not that religion infected politics, but that politics infected religion. The government didn't suffer because of the church. It was the church that degraded as the government got more involved in it. And the bishops got more political power, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And, well, just like now, our government wouldn't suffer if it became more Catholic. But as it is, our bishops are becoming more secular. And look what's happening.
And it's suffering. The church is suffering greatly because of it.
Yeah. Catholic people are suffering now. A lot of them don't even know it, but they are suffering. Well, so, I mean, I just wanted to point out that that's the world we're stepping into, that the two are pretty locked together. I mean, they don't always act together, but they're looking for the same things. They're looking for a stable society. And there were certain things that would pop up that would kind of destroy that stability. For example, heresy. When I tell you what you might compare it to is, let's say in America right now, after we've gone through the Civil War and freed slaves, after we fought in World War II, what if a group of neo-Nazis right now not opened up shop and decided to run for government positions, but started a conspiracy to secretly act as if they were Democrats and slowly take over the Democratic Party, you know?
Right.
I mean,
but actually, that's
people would see that as bad.
Not only would people see that as bad, but Democrats might see that as worthy of perhaps a certain amount of government action.
Government action and FBI, eventually,
you know, that kind of thing.
Maybe even Antifa and Black Lives Matter action, you know? I mean,
right. Violent action, in other words.
There would get violent action, not necessarily condoned by the government, but ignored by the government.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the kind of thing that was happening in the 13th century in France. So there was a group called the Cathars, and this was in, it started around like the mid 1100s in France. Mm-hmm. And it kind of got bigger and bigger until they had gotten so big that they had their own bishops and they were starting to gain a little bit of power.
And these were this was like a Gnostic heretical movement,
yeah.
Right? Okay.
Yeah. This was, they believed there were, you know, all physical things are evil, spiritual things are good, and there's this fight between the two. Now you hear about their practices, and a lot of their practices are ignored when you read up in places like Wikipedia and stuff like that. They were against acts of the flesh, so it says they were against sex. But they weren't against sex. They were against sex that would create life.
Oh.
So they weren't against gay sex.
Pleasuring themselves. They were just against making babies.
Right. And if they did happen to make babies, they would kill them. These were nasty people. Aside from being disgusting, they were violent.
Yeah.
Would
they kill them under the theory that that's evil, kill it, or under the theory that we made a baby, let's kill it while it's still innocent?
Well, it's the problem is that the human body is the marriage of a spiritual being to a physical being. The physical being is the bad part. The spiritual being is the part that the spiritual being has to rid itself of the physical being. So if there's a baby, if they could do an abortion, that would be good. That way it would never be a full union between the two. If you couldn't do an abortion, then you just go ahead and kill it when it's born. And then that would end that union. The baby's soul would be free to go to heaven. Thing.
Okay.
They were a weird bunch of people. And that's just one of the practices. They had a lot of weird practices. And it got to where there were wars being fought, kind of like, what do you call those? The wars that the church kind of headed off and fought against various, Muslim.
Oh, the Crusades.
Yeah, it was kind of like a crusade against these people. And they fought back and forth for a while until it looked like the church, we didn't have to worry about them being in power anymore. But meanwhile, a lot of them had gone into hiding, claiming to be Catholic. If they wanted to be Catholic, or if they wanted to be Cathars and hide it from us, that would be one thing. But they wanted to be Cathars, hide it from us, pretend to be Christian, and keep spreading their wicked doctrines, which causes disunity in the government. It causes conspiracy theories against each other. And these conspiracies did exist. I mean, conspiracy theory is a bad word nowadays, but it's almost as if people stop believing that there are conspiracies, but there are all kinds of conspiracies. In the recent history, there have been 3 conspiracies against the Catholic Church by Freemasons, by homosexuals, and by communists. All 3 of those groups are now in control of a lot of our church.
And the conspiracies by homosexuals and communists, I know, is fairly well documented. I don't know if the conspiracies by Freemasons, that might be a little bit more well hidden because the Freemasons were a little bit smarter than either the communists or the homosexuals.
Right. But you could go and look this stuff up. They did actually conspire, and we've got a communist pope right now. He might call himself a socialist or something else, but he's a communist.
And these conspiracies are long term. It's not like a conspiracy to, how a group might get together and conspire to let's say kidnap the governor or something like that. These are more like deep conspiracies of infiltration across generations. That kind of conspiracy.
We're going to get to the young, and we're going to get in the seminaries, and we're going to become priests and then bishops and maybe even popes, so that we can make our way of life the rule. And that's what they wanted to do, and people knew it. And so there were, and mind you, this is just after wars have been fought over this. There are these accusations, and when you have accusations, you have people taking it serious, and you have both government officials arresting people and putting them on trial, and you have crowds of people gathering and lynching people.
Both mobs and maybe small group vigilantes.
Yeah. I mean, the classic horror movie where you got a bunch of townsfolk with pitchforks and stuff. That kind of thing really happened.
It was a reality in history. Yeah, that really happened.
People would come and they would put people to death. So some of the officials, both in the church and in the government, said this needs more regulation. We can't just start accusing people and putting them to death. So they created the Inquisition. It was started and run mostly by Dominicans.
You know, I want to restate that point a little bit more succinctly because people don't realize this. The Inquisition was not created in order to set up a bunch of judgment and torture chambers for heretics. It was created in order to prevent a bunch of hacks from deciding on their own that somebody was a heretic and killing them.
Right.
That's what it was created for.
And one of the biggest groups who wanted it to happen were the kinds of people who were being accused.
Yeah.
Because you went from a basic lynch mob to having an organized trial where the accusers had to come up with evidence. There had to be evidence that this person did something wrong, that this person was a heretic. Now, I know a lot of people would right away say, okay, so
what if they are a heretic?
So what if they are? You're admitting that you put people to death or punish them or whatever for being a heretic. Yes, I'm admitting that. And that's what every group did. Every church. Every group.
But let me ask this, because this is one of those points that you read a lot of different things about the Inquisition, and I'm just curious what you've been able to uncover. If somebody was a heretic, claimed to be a heretic, was openly a heretic, and was calling the Catholic Church the anti-church publicly, would they be targeted by a inquisitorial type of judgment and possibly put to death for that?
Generally not. If I understand everything correctly, the local government was now in charge of it. There's no accusation to be made. He's not planning on returning to the church. If he's openly in dispute with the church, wherever he was staying, his land could be taken away from him, but not by the church. It was more by the civil authorities.
Right. So he might be exiled or something like that, but it wasn't really an inquisitor, because the real work of the Inquisition was ferreting out heresy that was masquerading, or ferreting out heretical intent that was masquerading as orthodoxy. Right.
For example, Galileo was saying, no, I'm not a heretic. That's why he had a trial.
Mm-hmm.
And, we'll get to the Jews and the Muslims in a minute, but, torture did eventually become a tool, which, again, it was a tool for everyone at that time, but the tool, when used by the church, wasn't as bad as used pretty much everywhere else. For example,
by not as bad, you mean not as intensely?
Right. Not as intensely.
I didn't even realize that.
There were very strict rules if the Inquisitor was going to use torture, which only happened in like 1 or 2% of the cases. But they couldn't do it for more than 15 minutes. Number one.
Oh, no kidding.
They couldn't kill him with torture or even maim him for life. It couldn't harm his body in any way.
That's interesting.
The local ordinary had to give his consent to it.
Mm-hmm.
If he did confess to something under torture, he had a second chance 24 hours later to talk about it again.
So let me ask that. I heard, and there's a lot of things I heard, and I'm just curious.
Yeah.
Does your research support this? Was torture generally used by the church within inquisitorial functions as an investigative technique, or was it more? Because I heard that often when torture was used, the investigation had pretty much been concluded, and the point of the torture was to get the person to confess so that there was some chance at all for reconciliation with God before they were put to death.
Did
you see anything at all that indicates that? Okay.
No.
That might be just something that somebody made up who was like, who thought the Inquisition was a great thing.
No, I don't understand why they would use it anyway, other than, okay, we know you are a heretic. What we want are the names of the people you conspire with.
Okay. Yeah, you're a conspirator. And
I didn't look into why, but there are manuals out there written by these early Dominicans explaining when and where and how to use it. But I only had a week, and I didn't get to actually look at them.
Oh. So were the inquisitors generally Dominicans?
I don't know if they were actual Dominicans. The Dominicans ran it and wrote the manuals on how to do it and stuff like that. Okay. But I could tell you that, like, let's say you're in that area and you get arrested for stealing someone's pig. A lot of guys would blaspheme in front of people so that he could be accused of heresy, so that he could be transferred to the ecclesial court.
Inquisitorial court where jurisprudence was more well developed.
Right. And he would have a better chance of getting better treatment, of not being tortured, and of having a better jail cell. Being fed better, all kinds of things.
To go back to your analogy, let's suppose you're a good Democrat, and suddenly you're accused of being a neo-Nazi infiltrator. And now, because of this accusation, you're afraid Antifa is going to show up on your doorstep and possibly, drag your kids out into your yard and brand them with hot irons as some kind of, retribution or whatever. You would really appreciate a little bit of rule of law and a little bit of jurisprudence in handling your case.
Right.
So that's
yeah.
That is
that's how
founding
a lot of the stuff developed. Yeah. It was successful. They rooted out these Cathars.
Were the Cathars a specific focus of the Inquisition?
At first, in that area, yes.
Okay.
Yes, in France. They may have looked at other heresies, but these people were specifically who they were going after. It was successful, and so later we come to Spain, which I haven't even begun to look at the history of Spain, but I understand that it's like a giant tangle of war and fighting between Jews, Muslims, and Christians, and that there are peace periods and hostile periods and periods where one group had control and then the other group had control, and it's a pretty violent past. And at some point we get to I guess this was around the 1200s, maybe the 1100s. There are Jews in Spain when Christians have finally kind of pushed the Muslims back far enough to where they're no longer a threat. And at the point of the sword, or maybe under threat of being kicked out of the country, the Jews were given the chance to convert to Christianity.
Okay. So one of
this
those
isn't by the church. These are by soldiers. By the
Spanish government?
This is by the army, you know?
Oh, okay.
And by citizens, things like that. They're worried about these Jews doing something, so hey, you want to stay here, you got to be Christian.
I see. It's like that's one of the things in a neighborhood said, hey, this is a neighborhood for Christians. You got to get out of here. One of us.
Yeah, but Father Martin isn't heading this off. I mean, you know, it's the way a lot of people live. People wanted like people around them, and they didn't want. And there was also there was some mistreatment of the Jews for all the reasons that it's been there for centuries. And the same thing that Hitler did goes all the way back to 12th century Spain. Things like the fact that a lot of people don't know this, but you see, Christians are not allowed to loan money at a profit. We're not allowed to do that.
Now,
that's against the Catholic religion.
Is that a strict thing, or is that one of those you can only loan money at reasonable at reasonable like interest related to like modern economics theories of inflation and that kind of stuff?
I don't know what it is now because our economy has changed so much. But throughout most history, Catholics were not allowed to loan money for interest. They're not allowed to make money that way. Or at least not at an obscene profit. Maybe they must have been allowed to have some kind of profit.
I mean, if you think about it, the theory would be that
it's talked about in the Bible, in the New Testament. If you're going to
make money, you have to make something. And merely loaning money isn't making something, so you shouldn't make a profit at that. If you're going to make a profit, it should be because you did something, created something, whatever.
Right.
So I could see, that being a...
And they may have gone back and forth on that, but it was always a thing in Christianity that you don't use money that way.
However they defined it, usury was a sin. And today it still is.
Yeah. But Jews don't see it as a sin. You don't find that in the Old Testament.
Oh, okay.
So Jews have always commonly loaned money when Christians wouldn't, because the Jewish people could, whoever
they were allowed
a Jewish guy was allowed to, it wasn't against his religion. So they did.
You know what's interesting about
that's why you got a lot of Jewish banks very early on.
I'm going to pause right here and sidetrack you for a minute. Even Jesus...
I'm going to run to my car because I forgot something.
Okay, even Jesus used the... one of his parables, one of his, in my opinion, more significant parables, that of the, call it the parable of the talents or whatever, but he invoked the money changers as part of the equations. The guys who were good stewards of the master's money, the way they did that was by giving the money to the money changers, who what they were doing was loaning money, getting interest, and then you would get some share of the interest of the money that you allowed them to loan for you. And then that would be a return for the master. And it's interesting, Jesus himself didn't even seem to have that much of a problem with that. And yet somehow it developed fairly early in Christianity that you weren't allowed to loan money at interest. I'm kind of really curious. We ought to do a podcast about that sometime. Just a history of Christian theory of money. And as it relates to things like lending and interest and that kind of stuff. I don't want to sidetrack our whole discussion for that, but since you brought that up, it just occurs to me that there's something to explore there. We should do that someday. Okay, so point is, yes, the Jews are lenders, and therefore they are acquirers of wealth within the world.
Right. So there was some distrust of them. And when Christians retake this land, at some point, I don't know if it was kicked off by something like a plague or something like that. And at some point, a lot of Jews are told, if you want to stay here and not die, you got to convert. And a lot of people converted, and some of them did so sincerely, and probably a lot of them didn't.
Yeah.
A lot of them did say, yeah, fine, I'll believe whatever you want, you know. Now, here's a part. I mean, that did happen. We're not supposed to do that, and some Catholics did it. The church didn't do it.
Basic conversion by the sword mentality of the Muslims that we condemn.
Right. And Muslims definitely do that.
Yeah, and Muslims do it. Anybody who thinks Muslims don't do that, this was the teaching of the founder of Islam, Muhammad himself. He taught conversion by the sword. Nobody should have any bones about admitting that. That is part of the religion of Islam. From beginning till now, it's always been a part of Islam. It's never not been a part of Islam. They're doing it now in those Muslim countries. Right now. And they always have. So, okay. Yes, some Christians engaged in that. And it was wrong for Christians to do it.
Right. But it wasn't that long after these same Jews were given a chance, these Jews were given a chance to recant their conversion.
Oh, by the church, like once things settled down?
Yeah. I don't know if that was part of, but a lot of them did.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing
I
is
really am
that
a Jew. I gotta be a Jew.
Right. But some of them didn't. And there might be a couple reasons not to. Maybe some of them really did convert.
It's quite possible.
Also,
there's a lot to be said, and there's a lot that's attractive in the Christian religion.
I think many Jews don't realize what Christianity is like, especially Catholicism, where we have the same kind of rituals and stuff that they have in their religion. And it could be that the more they learned about it, they say, hey, this is just like us, only different. And it's like, oh, maybe this is Christian Judaism, because maybe that guy Jesus really was the Messiah. And so I can see a lot of Jews converting.
And once they got into it, a lot of them might even feel a certain, especially serious Jews that were religious, they might feel a certain sense of, wow, I was a wanderer, now I'm home, kind of thing.
Right. Yeah, I would think that a serious Jew would be more likely to convert than someone who wasn't seriously Jewish at first, and
and just did it in order to. Okay, well, I'm not a serious Jew. I won't be a serious Christian. Whatever. I'll do whatever you need me to do so I can stay here.
But obviously, a Jewish who has converted is going to be able to. It gives him advantage economically because he's going to be able to take part in more of the economy than a Jewish man would.
Because people had a sense of interacting with people that they know.
Right.
Economically speaking.
Right.
And so if they know people, they would interact with Christian brothers as a priority over others.
Certainly. And it's only really recent that people stopped doing that.
Yeah.
So a Jewish guy who converted at the point of the sword might decide, you know what, I'm doing okay in this Christian religion. I'm not really Christian, but I'd rather just stay where I am.
Mm-hmm.
Also, the Jews who didn't convert and who maybe fled to another area might not accept those people who did. And so recanting their Christian faith might be pointless for them.
Right.
Because now they're not Christian or Jewish. And so either way, a lot of Jews who weren't really Christians didn't go back to Judaism.
Right.
And that is where the problem kind of started. Especially since Judaism and Islam are not illegal in Spain. As a matter of fact, Spain had a larger Jewish community than any other area in Europe.
So these Jews,
there were a lot of Jews there
who accepted the name of Christian but didn't return to being Jewish, but they weren't really Christians either at heart.
Right.
So what was that? Was that becoming a problem because they retained a lot of Jewish practices and were sort of infecting the church in a sense? What was the problem that was cropping up because of them? A problem that, why was it different than a problem of just lackadaisical Christians?
Right. Well, we're back to conspiracies.
Okay.
Which it did exist. There were Jews who were plotting against the church. There were even priests and bishops who were Jewish and were storing weapons, things like that.
Wow.
There were plots against the church and against the crown in favor of the Muslims who were still banking on coming back down and reclaiming the land.
Ah, I see.
So
they thought they might get better treatment under the Muslims than they're currently even getting under the Catholic regime.
This is at a time just as, Isabella and Ferdinand get married and unite all of Spain for the first time in I guess for the first time ever. This giant area is under one ruler, or at least under one monarch. And so there's a country forming here, and they have a lot of power, and they want to protect the power, mostly from the Muslims who might be being helped by these Jews who are pretending to be Christians. So they start the same thing that happened in France. Mm-hmm. You've got conspiracies out there, and you've got the civil authorities acting on these conspiracies, taking people and trying them, and in not a very good way. There's trials that have no evidence, and so again, you've got a group of people who are innocent but don't have a way to fight this. Those were mostly the ones who were calling for an inquisition. And
a lot of these might be former Jews who really converted.
Right. Those were mostly the ones who wanted the Inquisition because they knew that an Inquisition would protect their rights and not just put them to death because their neighbor is accusing them of this.
Insist on evidence, not just accusation.
Right. So, now, I think it was Pope Sixtus IV who issued a papal bull granting an inquisition to deal with this problem.
Specifically in Spain.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, at first, they didn't accept it. They said, we're not going to use the Inquisition yet. We're going to do our things, which included just trying to convert the Christians, trying to teach. I think they started these like apologetics campaigns to try to teach people how to fight against heresy. And all it really did was raise a bunch of more arguments and fights. And so finally they said, okay, we do need an inquisition. And I guess the first round of this inquisition, I don't have the guys' names who were in charge of it, but it did end up being kind of a fiasco. For about a year, there was a lot of wild accusations. There was more torture than had ever been done by the church. And there were executions. Altogether, there were around 2,000 executions in that first year. Not 2 million as some people would have you believe.
Off by a factor of 1,000, huh?
It could also be that...
So this is the sort of infamous Torquemada, right? He was like the first Grand Inquisitor of Spain?
No.
Really?
He wasn't the first.
Oh.
He came in to clean up this mess.
Oh, no kidding. Okay, so the Inquisition was really kind of a fiasco.
There were a number of people
before Torquemada came in.
Yeah. And when he came in, the torture, the number of people who were tortured or the cases where torture was used went down a lot it went down to like I said, 1 or 2% of the cases had torture involved. The executions dropped dramatically to where in 1 year it had been, around 2,000. Now, I don't know what year 2 and 3 were, but it quickly dropped to about 2 to 3 executions per year. That's what it kind of ended up at under his command. He was more just, and there's another thing out here that keeps bugging me because people keep saying they used, and I understand some people will say, yeah, but the politicians used the Inquisition to rid themselves of Jews and Muslims. But you have to remember, this is an ecclesial court.
Yeah.
It's not against the law to be a Jew or to be a Muslim. This is a church court. The only people who are involved are people claiming to be part of the church.
Who were at least claiming to be Catholics. Yeah. If you said I'm not a Catholic, then it's like, okay, you're not a Catholic. Good. Go your merry way.
You're a Jew. Okay, go. You're fine.
And the people will treat you according to, you may not get people to interact with you or whatever, but if you're not a Catholic, you're not a Catholic. All right.
Yeah. They had no jurisdiction over Jews or Muslims. That's like one of the biggest things people fail to mention when they're talking about the Spanish Inquisition.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I know there were other Inquisitions, and I know they were in different countries. I didn't look a whole lot at what happened in those because everybody talks about the Spanish Inquisition, and I wanted to know what really happened to the Spanish Inquisition.
What was all this Spanish stuff?
Now, over the centuries, obviously, anyone with power abuses it, or any group with power has members who abuse it. Just like right now, we've got people abusing their power. We got governors taking action that they just shouldn't take because they're becoming tyrants. So I would assume there were some bad inquisitors. There were probably some bad priests.
How do you say there's no tyranny like petty tyranny? Well, aside from the inquisitors themselves, I can't help but think that local mayors, and even maybe kings, but especially local mayors would use the Inquisition as a weapon and try to point the Inquisition at their enemies and their adversaries and so on and so forth.
Right. So that's kind of what happened. It's not really that big a deal, and it didn't kill that many people, and the torture happened very, very rarely, and it wasn't nearly as severe as all the secular forces used it. It was a toned-down version of what happened kind of normally in any court system.
So I guess what you could say is
the court system we have now developed out of this Inquisition.
Yeah, a lot of our modern jurisprudence was developed out of Catholic inquisitorial jurisprudence. But you could almost say that the modern reputation of the Inquisition is what would have happened if the Inquisition had not been established.
Yeah. You want to know what would have happened if the Inquisition hadn't been established? Look at the Salem witch trials.
That's right.
That wasn't the Catholic
even
Church.
The Salem witch trials. I mean, it's like it got crazy in that town until finally somebody decided, guys, we need some sane people to come in and actually hold evidence-based trials. It was almost like a microcosm of the Inquisition phenomenon.
Right.
I mean, maybe that's another thing we could do. It's not really Catholic specific related because I think it was basically a Protestant town and that kind of stuff. But it might be interesting just as an historical study to do a podcast on that.
The thing is, people will talk about the Spanish Inquisition as if one of the things they went after were witches. And I couldn't find anywhere where that actually happened.
I don't know that there were witches proper
They mixed
back then.
the two accusations. They mix all these accusations. They take all the things that the Lutherans were doing to Catholics, and talk about it as if the Spanish Inquisition was doing it to heretics. And it's like, come on, dude.
Yeah. Well,
just
it's
get your
kind of
facts
funny.
straight.
I just, like, while you were talking, what I was actually interested in, there's a certain, author who I is a historian. His name is Warren Carroll. And I think he's the guy that I heard somebody describe, if it didn't happen in Spain, it didn't happen. I think he's the guy who's very, very focused on Spanish history. If people are interested in Spanish history more generally, I would recommend going and looking up Warren Carroll as an author. That's Carroll, Carroll. But anyway, while I was searching for that, I saw this link for the History Channel, history.com. You people might, have seen shows on the History Channel, and they have a little, a thing on the Inquisition, and in a section of it called Catharists, it has this statement: the Inquisition had its origins in the early organized persecution of non-Catholic Christian religions in Europe.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah, that's it.
I mean, you could see the complete spin and the complete disinformation encoded into that statement based on what we explained at the beginning of this podcast. Right. But this is the modern reputation of the Inquisition. Aside,
again, it's the fact that it's always... Look, Catholicism became the main religion. In areas that it wasn't the main religion, it's not like they accepted Catholics. When you go to Luther's provinces, they were putting Catholics to death. You know what I mean? It's like,
as Catholics,
this is how society worked. Yeah, they expected you to like be that. Part of the religion of wherever you were.
And honestly, this is one of those things where, I don't know if like other Protestant religions, as they were persecuting in England, absolutely. The government and the Anglican and bishops, Germany, they were all about, persecuting Catholics as Catholics.
Yeah.
The Catholic Church, as an ecclesial matter, even though, like we've pointed out, local mayors and maybe even kings might have abused and tried to sort of aim the church as a kind of like a weapon, but the church itself did not,
especially
target.
King Philip.
Yeah,
in the Knights Templar and him going after them.
Mm-hmm. But the Catholic Church didn't target non-Catholics; it only targeted those who claimed to be Catholic.
Right. That's such a important thing to remember when talking about this. Now, I can see how someone might say, well, okay, they only became Catholic because they would be discriminated against if they weren't Catholic. And maybe in some areas that's true. I don't know.
Okay, but maybe sure. And maybe the church even encouraged that, whatever. Let me ask you, people like to think of that as a bad thing. Oh, well, social pressure to be Catholic. Wow, isn't that, kind of off the chart? Should we create social pressure against being, say, racist? Should we avoid patronizing shops that we know the proprietor is a racist because he's a racist? Is that a right thing in society? Of course it is. Why? Because being non-racist is the truth. Well, guess what? Christianity is the truth. If you believe that, you should have no problem with a social sort of pressure to be Christian.
Right. The American experience is relatively new, and it started precisely to escape that kind of thing. But the entire world was that way for an awful long time.
Yeah.
Even the Jews, when they were wandering in the desert, before they even came to the Holy Land, wherever they were expected to pay homage to these other gods. And our God, the God, was the one who said, look, enough of this. There's only one. You only give homage to me. And as Christians, we follow that, and we think that paying homage to another god is evil.
Yeah.
And should be discouraged in any way we can discourage it. I don't know about putting people to death, but if we can say, look, you're not allowed to have idols, I think that would be a good thing.
Yeah. The Jewish kings that were, that God approved were the ones that not only in their personal lives paid homage to God, but that had all of the altars and various places of worship to other gods torn down and destroyed.
Right. And when Christians came into power, that's what they did. But you got to remember that before they came into power, for 300 years straight, they were tortured and killed for not offering homage to these false gods.
Yeah, that's true. That was the point at which Christians would obey the governors, obey the emperors. They would follow all of the social and legal customs and requirements. They were the best supporters of the local kings and governors among the population. The one thing they could not do is pay homage to these other gods, and for that they were, for 300 years, persecuted and often tortured and killed.
Right. Which, if you listen to our past 10 episodes, we've been talking about saints who died in the early
examples.
Church.
That's right.
We're going to talk about another one today.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's about all I got on the Spanish Inquisition. I haven't heard any fair secular talks about it. There's so much misinformation. I'm amazed at how little people actually look into this stuff. Remember that there were very careful when the church. I'm not talking about when local politicians tried people, but when the church tried someone and inquired to see if they were faking Christianity, they kept careful records of everything that was said and everything they did.
So we have
those records
today.
Yeah, they're open. You can go and right now they're being digitized. But even you got to get permission to go look at them. But if you want to look at the original
physical ones, there are. These records, even if they're on parchments and that kind of stuff, they're still fragile and so on and so forth. The digitization of these things, I think that's a really good.
But that's going to be really neat
fruit of the modern
when
era.
It's all done.
Yeah.
But there's so much to do, and here's the thing. If, let's say, you've decided you want to make a study of this, you can go to Rome. You don't have to be a priest. You don't have to be from an order. They do expect you to have some kind of, they want something like credentials. They want a degree or something. Right.
You got to be a serious historian, not just a curious hack.
Some guy. Yeah. Right. Because these are some pretty valuable things that you're looking at. And fragile, like you said. But anyone can go look at them, and you tell them what they want, what you want, and the workers there go down and get it and bring it to you, and you sit in a room and look at it, and then you return it.
And honestly, let's say you are just a curious hack, but you're a rich curious hack. There's probably historians that you can hire to go and get the information that you want. Guys who know how to handle it, who can actually get in and get it. So that's right. But the point is, this stuff
it's not available. A secret. Put it that way.
Yeah, it's not like the church is suppressing information or anything like that. Anybody can actually get access to it if they want to.
And I'm astounded at how few people have.
Yeah, it surprises me how few people have, because it's like the misinformed narrative of the Inquisition is so pervasive that it's like almost people don't want to know the truth.
They don't even say if you're in an argument with someone, they just say, "And what about the Spanish Inquisition?" To them, for their entire lives, that's been enough to win the argument.
That's the closer. What about the Spanish?
Don't say anything about it. Oh, okay, yeah.
Go back to what I said at the beginning. If somebody brings that up, say, tell me 5 things that you know about the Spanish Inquisition. Okay, you collect those 5 things, you go back and do real research, and you'll probably find that every single one of those 5 things is incorrect, factually.
Yeah. Another problem is that the things that we've come to think of as reliable on history are still telling that story, though.
Well, yeah. I mean, history.com.
The History Channel. Yeah, you would expect that to be somewhat accurate, but it's not.
It doesn't even attempt to be.
So, that's where we are on the Spanish Inquisition.
All right. Well, wow, that was a good that was a good treatment of it.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that. There was sometime we might also want to do the other kind of black mark on the church is the Crusades. And I forget if it's the Inquisition or the Crusades, but the BBC, the British, channel did a documentary on one or the other of those two things. I forget what it was. But it was actually more of a fair-minded deep dive treatment than you expect in modern historical kind of sources. I'm going to try to find out which it was, and we'll put it up, sometime on our website, and people can check that out. But the Crusades is another one that we might want to treat sometime and spend a little bit of time talking about it. Thing is, the Crusades, there's like multiples of them. There were a few different Crusades, so it might be like 2 podcasts worth or something like that.
Yeah,
but
it would take some research, though.
Oh, absolutely. So, anyway, though, wow,
okay.
Good stuff, definitely. And I learned a few things myself. I
found out a lot about it.
One of the things you brought this up at the very beginning. You have to, if you're going to kind of try to sit in judgment of people, you have to judge them in the world that they live in.
Yeah, not in this world.
I run into
20th century America.
Doing like genealogy stuff. Like, you'll see in genealogy people had like, say, indentured servants that in their will they left to someone else. Right. Or they sold their child into apprenticeship or something like that. It's like, today people, what? You sold your kid? It's like, well, that's just the way things were done then. You can't judge this person on that act according to your own modern standards. You have to understand the times as they existed when these people were doing these things.
Yeah, it's frustrating because I don't know if that's a recent thing or if it's always been this way, but it's like so many people act so surprised about something someone did, and they judge that person alone for that practice when it's like everybody was doing that. That's how people live.
So you're judging it according to modern standards of expected behavior.
You just can't do that.
You can't do that.
Yeah.
You have to understand people within an historical context. Now, that doesn't mean you excuse what people do just because the historical context contained that. The historical context, if you're studying people in deep South America, well, okay, they're cannibals. They, kill other people and then they have a big, feast and orgy where they eat them or whatever. And it's like, well, okay, that's what they did then. So that was okay. You don't conclude, you don't make moral conclusions based on the fact that that's just what people did.
Yeah.
But when you look at an individual, is that, okay, he did this. Well, how much of that was just, that's part of the world he was brought up in. You can't judge him individually so much on that.
Right. 200 years from now, what are they going to say about abortion?
Oh, wow. I mean, 200 years from now, when people have really, like, woken up to the truth, and they look back, it's like...
people killed their own babies?
Such a barbaric age. You know, the 19th and 20th centuries, or the
millions of babies every year. Yeah.
Yeah. It's going to be, it's going to blow people's minds that we actually lived this way. It's going to blow people's minds that even those who were against it somehow allowed it to happen.
Right. That's what I was thinking. People are going to look at us and say, well, you're doing podcasts on the Spanish Inquisition when people are killing their babies?
That's true. They're going to look at pro-lifers as, like, moral failures for not actually, changing the situation.
That's same true. Way we look at the Nazis or German citizens at the time. Like, you lived right down the street from a concentration camp.
Exactly.
Why didn't you do something?
That's right. And we hold that judgment on them today. Now, as individuals, okay, wait a minute. You've got a whole thing there because a guy's got to provide for his family, and it's like how much do you speak out? How much do you keep quiet?
Yeah.
It's like, can I, if I can find a way to help this Jew without actually exposing myself, that's better, because then I can at least continue to provide for my family. I mean, it's a complex
and a lot of
moral
people
situation in every era. Even for those who do recognize the moral problems with the standard customs. What about a cannibal who's in a tribe in South America who thinks, it's probably wrong to be a cannibal.
We shouldn't be eating each other.
We shouldn't be eating each other. What's he going to do? So, I mean, even if he kind of finds excuses to refrain from the rituals and the orgies and stuff, you can condemn the actions, but you also have to, when you're looking at individuals, you have to understand them within their historical context. Right. And those individuals include mayors, governors, kings, and so forth. And priests and bishops.
Priests and bishops.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Speaking
We're ready
of
to talk about
bishops,
current events?
Yeah.
All right.
Except, didn't Pope Francis do something just recently? Okay. I'm going to look this up before I start because, let's see. Pope Francis thanks God for the President of Ireland. Pope Francis says, "Today I did not just meet a man, a president. I met a wise man of today." That's what Pope Francis says about the President of Ireland, who, and same-sex marriage. This is a bad guy. Why does our Pope do things? It's just more of the same. It's disgusting, Yeah. So, Ireland is no more Catholic, as Danny just said, because he's getting coffee. Well, anyway, okay, so ISIL opens fire on Taliban at a gas station in, Jalalabad, killing 2 Taliban soldiers, the gas attendant, and a child. Because that's what these people do. They don't just kill the soldiers, they kill everybody. So, Taliban and ISIL are fighting. ISIS kills 4 Christian Afghan men after stopping their vehicle and shooting them. So ISIL, ISIS, and the Taliban are all going at it. Taliban has vowed to capture the leader of the ISIL in Afghanistan. There is, and shortly later, the Taliban raids a complex in Nangarhar province and arrests more than 80 fighters and kills who they say is the ISIL leader. So they did get someone. And the guy that they're saying is responsible for the attack in Jalalabad. Meanwhile, women are barred from working or attending classes at Kabul University. The Taliban is saying that as long as real Islamic environment is not provided for all, women will not be allowed to come to universities to work. So I guess as long as the men don't have the opportunity to work, then women won't be allowed to work.
Oh, okay.
I think that's what they're trying to say.
That sounds like a reasonable interpretation of that.
The Taliban police also order barbers to stop trimming beards. Barbers are not allowed to trim beards in Afghanistan.
Huh. Is that an Islamic thing?
I guess so.
I've never heard of that.
I guess that group. So France and the United States agree to meet in Europe to try to repair the strained relations after that little deal we made with Australia and the UK to try to fight China in the Indonesian Sea.
Right.
So and France is agreeing to send its ambassador back to the U.S.
So was France against that? I don't see that
he's done it yet. Yeah, France is against us fighting with China.
Why?
Or even arming up against them. I don't know.
Huh. That's surprising.
These European countries they're so self-destructive. It's like they're self-destructive the way American Democrats have become. Mm-hmm. Where it's like, all the things that are bad for my country, I'm going to be for, and all the things that are good for my country, I'm going to be against. That's right. That's what's happened lately.
So that my country can dissolve and become part of the globalist whole or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, and it seems like they don't really care who's in charge of this.
Yeah.
I think some of them think that they're going to be in charge of their sections. They don't really understand how it works. But
could be.
We'll see.
All right.
Same-sex marriages is legalized in the state of Sonora, Mexico.
Oh.
It's like a 70-30 vote.
Wow.
It was kind of sad.
Wow, that is sad. I would have thought it would be closer. So, Mexico is one of those countries that, they've got the big drug cartels. They've got a lot of problems. They present problems for America. But culturally,
the
sad. People there are Catholic.
Right.
Yeah, this is really disheartening.
Ukraine passes a law. I don't understand how they can pass this law, but ordering oligarchs to stay out of politics.
What does that mean?
I don't know. If you own a business, you can't be in politics.
Is that what they consider oligarchs?
Oligarch is like a really rich business owner, I thought.
If you think of like the three forms of government, or not the three, but three what are considered the sort of idealizations of forms of governance. You've got monarchy, you've got aristocracy, which is like ruled by the nobles, a few noble elites who rule, and then you've got democracy, which is ruled by everybody. Well, then there's the corresponding evil versions of those, which is tyranny, which is the evil version of a monarchy, and actually, what's interesting is that republic is the rule, by people, and democracy is the evil version of the republic, but then the evil version of aristocracy is the oligarchy.
Yeah, okay, I'm seeing it here. It's just a dominant class. Generally, that's a rich class, and they're the ones who own all the businesses. That's how I always thought of them.
It's kind of weird. It's like within a... How can you define an oligarch such that you say you're not allowed to... That's so weird.
Yeah, that's a weird way to... I don't understand how you can make a law against
your tax form says that you earn more than $3 million or something like that. You're classified as an oligarch or something.
I guess so. People, Facebook guys, and they're not going to be allowed to run for office.
That's right.
In Ukraine.
Elon Musk.
Yeah, forget it. European Commission announces plans to require USB-C connection to become the standard port for smartphones and stuff like that.
Huh.
This I don't get at all.
When
did the European Commission
on device connectivity on a Europe-wide level?
Shoot.
USB-C? Wow.
You ever do a search on? There it is. You ever do like a word search and then you found something, it found something and it's highlighting it, but you can't figure out where it is?
Oh, yeah.
I couldn't find where it was, but the year announces plans Thursday to create a harmonized charging technology. Why is the European Commission doing anything with that?
That deserves to be on my nonsense news.
Yeah.
That's so stupid. Let people figure it out themselves.
The Commission said the plan will help consumers and reduce electronic waste. Why? Because the chargers last longer or what? That's stupid.
Apple's going to have to go to the USBs. Besides, who cares? I mean, we've got converters everywhere. You got the little wires that split into
Listen to this.
2 or 3 different things.
In a statement, they said, "We gave industry plenty of time to come up with their own solutions. Now time is ripe for legislative action for a common charger."
Oh my, what idiots!
Man, these people are dumb.
Oh gosh, they're so dumb.
That's why all this stuff developed in America.
That's exactly how Democrats think in America.
I know. That's the problem. We're arresting the progress here. We're going to stop all technology from progressing any further because we're going to take control of it. Yeah. It's stupid. It's so dumb.
Wow.
That's how these people think, though. And the fact that all this stuff developed in America at a time when America was most free, they don't get that. That means nothing to them.
I feel so sorry for Europeans. I really do.
Yeah. Well, let's see, where were we? People's Bank of China rules that all financial transactions and activities involving cryptocurrency are illegal in the country.
Huh.
What about when their government does it? Is it illegal then? Besides, I mean, because their government is banking up on Bitcoin.
Yeah.
China is. They've got giant...
in China, illegal only applies to peasants.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, anything the government does is transcendent of the concepts of legality and illegality. In fact, that's a case for any communist country.
A team of researchers in Bournemouth University conclude that a series of human footprints at White Sands National Park in New Mexico date back to 21,000 or 23,000 years ago.
Okay.
Suggesting that humans lived in the Americas 5,000 years earlier than previously thought.
Interesting.
I kind of don't believe it.
I wonder if it's,
there is no way you can have a footprint that old.
Well, I mean, if you had...
I think maybe they're just...
if you had a footprint and
then
the material dried out and then was washed over by some different kind of material that then hardened, you could have the footprint preserved that way.
It would have had to dry out real quick. You've seen prints in... I guess if you had mostly dry mud stepped on by a person...
Think of it this way. You say, okay... you're learning, your way around water. You're learning to swim. Okay. So, and you get to the point where, okay, well, yeah, I can go into the 3-foot part of the pool. Well, I can go into the 7-foot part of the pool. Oh, wait a minute, 7-foot. You got to float for that. And then, okay, I can go into the 10-foot part of the pool. Now, here's the thing. Once you're into the 10-foot part of the pool, does it matter whether it's 10 foot, 100 foot, or 1,000 feet?
I know.
No.
I know. It's stupid.
So if you can preserve a footprint for 100 years, if there's a natural mechanistic way for footprints to get preserved, for 100 years, okay, it could be preserved for 20,000 years. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, you're right. Okay. But what I'd like to know is...
But how do they date it like that? I bet there's a lot of speculation behind that.
5,000, yeah, I know. 5,000 years, though, that's the difference that they're saying. They're saying that humans lived here 5,000 years earlier. Is 5,000 years, when you're talking about 20,000 years, is it really that much different?
So they thought, they believe people were on, what, the North American continent, like as early as...
Yeah, I guess
15,000 years ago or whatever?
Ago. No, 18,000.
And now they're saying 23,000?
Yeah.
Okay. That doesn't sound like that big of a difference, and honestly, it sounds like probably... within
that sounds like a rounding mistake.
That's what. Well, not mistake necessarily,
the dating,
but within the variability of dating.
Yeah.
It sounds like within the error. The range of error.
Yeah. Yahoo News is saying that members of the CIA, including Mike Pompeo, had planned to kidnap and maybe assassinate Julian Assange in 2017. I don't believe that.
Assassinate
at all.
Who? Who is that?
Julian Assange, the WikiLeaks guy.
Oh, okay.
WikiLeaks kind of helped, unless Mike Pompeo is against Trump, because Julian Assange is the one who leaked all the stuff about. Really, everything he leaked was about Trump's enemies, political enemies, because he didn't have anything on Trump. Nobody did.
Because Trump was not in government.
Right. So I can't imagine why one of Trump's guys would plan to kidnap or assassinate Julian Assange.
Yeah, that's
which
weird.
Mike Pompeo at the time was...
Yeah, sounds like...
Unless Mike Pompeo... Of course, now we know that no one was one of Trump's guys because everybody was against him. So maybe that's it.
That's true. If you are an outsider, you do not have any friends who are insiders. That we've learned. Yeah. That's what the Trump presidency has taught us. That if you're an outsider, there's no such thing as a loyal insider. Right. Yeah. It's a shame. So apparently Poland had several LGBT-free zones. I don't understand what that means. Does that mean that really all it says is marry each other?
Free of LGBT ideology. I think all that really means is you're not allowed to teach to our kids.
You can't teach it, in schools and stuff like that. Well, Poland is a pretty conservative and a pretty Catholic country right now.
Well, 3 of the regions in Poland have decided to give up on that.
Oh, that's too bad.
Yeah, it's a shame.
Well, that's a real shame. I was thinking of retiring to Poland.
Yeah.
No, just kidding. But
so NASA, yeah, I know. NASA is announcing the launch of Lucy. It's going to be a 12-year space probe on specifically targeting Jupiter Trojan asteroids, which are asteroids that kind of orbit the sun in Jupiter's pattern.
Not between Mars and Jupiter, where most of them are.
Right.
Okay, I didn't realize there were such asteroids.
I wonder how big some of these are. I wonder if some of them are actually almost like moons or tiny planets.
Yeah.
I'll bet there's some big ones.
And I bet there's some mineral-rich ones that could be turned into, like mining operations and stuff like that. It's going to happen, guys.
Yeah.
I mean, unless Jesus comes back beforehand,
fairly quickly,
going to happen. The technology will build and will continue to build that will cause it to happen.
Eventually, we're going to find an asteroid made mostly of gold.
Oh. And then awesome. Gold will cease to be a rare mineral.
That's a Twilight Zone, isn't it?
Is it really? I got to go.
Well, these guys, they induce, what's that called? Cryogenic sleep.
Oh,
where you freeze yourself. They steal a bunch of gold, and then they put themselves to sleep for 100 years.
And gold's worthless.
Right, but first they kill each other over the gold, after they wake up, they're in the desert and they're fighting each other, and finally one guy ends up with all the gold. And then he ends up dying, but some people drive by and are like, why is he carrying around this gold? Because they can't figure it out because gold is worthless at the time. Maybe
1960 Twilight Zone episode, Gold in the Future.
Yeah, it's a good one.
I think that's probably
They're all good. Most of them are good.
I need to get the Twilight Zone series and just watch them, because every one of them is interesting.
Did you get my collection of videos?
No, your collection of videos is enormous. I got the Wild Kingdom.
Oh,
ones,
you got the Wild Kingdom ones.
Which,
okay.
Yeah,
I do have
I still
Twilight
watch those.
Zone.
Those are fun.
Yeah. I have the Twilight Zones.
I might get them from you.
Yeah. YouTube says that it will ban misinformation related to the COVID-19 vaccine. How the hell does YouTube know what misinformation is?
Yeah, are they going to ban information on the hydrochloro, whatever that?
It's I don't know.
That was misinformation, but now they're saying, oh wait, it really is. Yeah, that's the thing. It's like
it's so dumb because scientists don't even know anything about the COVID-19 vaccine. I mean, it's like we're in testing stage. Morons.
Okay, one thing we could probably call misinformation is that it makes you magnetic.
Okay, if you're saying it makes you magnetic, we'll ban you.
But should you ban that? I mean, come on. Just the fact that YouTube sets themselves up as like gatekeepers of truth is like so weird and bizarre, and it's like
right.
So
there were.
Makes them seem extremely childish is the point. It's like I say about Democrats. Democrats don't know how to govern. They just play at governing. It's like kids playing house. Well, now you've got YouTube and Twitter and Google getting into the act as well.
And you've got a few guys who, by chance, made some lucky decisions.
Yeah.
And often illegal decisions.
Yeah.
I mean, YouTube is powerful precisely because they decided to ignore the laws on copyright.
Yep, that's true. And then Google bought them, which gave them the monetary backing to be able to do that.
Other competitors of YouTube did not ignore the laws on copyright infringement, and that's why everybody goes to YouTube.
Yeah.
So, anyway, Russia is threatening to ban YouTube because YouTube banned 2 German language channels backed by the Russian state that were deleted for violating the COVID-19 misinformation guidelines.
That's one of the things people say, I know that people say, well, gee, we got to get the government involved because, for example, in a free market, how could YouTube, how could Google, etc., be, toppled, whatever, competed with, and so on and so forth. But, in America, we have a more strictly kind of free market mentality, but other entities, other governments throughout the world don't necessarily share that. And
right.
A lot of people who see it as...
Especially Russia.
As Google and YouTube are unstoppable, they don't realize that there's a whole big world out there beyond our sort of narrow American point of view. We can be true to our principles. And you know what? If the rest of the world weren't out there, let's say the rest of the world were, like third world and so on and so forth, fourth world, whatever, Google and YouTube wouldn't even be that powerful because it would be United States only. So I don't know. I think people ought to have a little bit more faith in the American system, and those countries that don't operate according to the American system, sometimes they will play right into our hands and help accomplish what we thought might be impossible.
Yeah. Well, that's all I got for the news.
Oh, okay. Well, I need to pull up my news then. Let's see. Okay, let's see. First off, a guy in Turkey. I don't know. You ever hear that this modern phenomenon of finding yourself is, oh yeah, I'm going to go find myself or something like that?
Yeah.
Okay, well, this guy in Turkey went missing and then joined the search party looking for himself.
That's good. Did he find himself?
I guess so.
Guys,
he went missing.
I found me.
He was like with some friends and he got drunk and wandered into the woods. Well, his friends and his wife reported him missing when they couldn't get in touch with him for several hours. Okay. You know, in the there's a reason why most jurisdictions in the United States say, well, it's got to be at least 24 hours, sometimes 48 hours,
24
whatever.
hours.
Yeah. So anyway, they got together a great big search team, and he ended up joining the team. And when they started calling out his name, I don't know, maybe he didn't know who they were searching for, but they started calling out his name, and he said, I'm here.
Yeah, over here.
It says,
Joe! Right here.
It's unclear whether he faces any penalty. I don't know what penalty you could face. I mean, if you got lost, you got lost.
There was a Barney Miller episode where Will Jehowitz answers the phone and he says, no, husband has to be missing 24 hours before we can report him missing. And then he hangs up and Barney's like, is that a worried housewife? He said, no, that's the husband. He wanted to know how much of a head start he had.
I don't think I've ever seen that one. I've seen a few Barney Millers. I've never watched the complete series, though. Is that another one you have?
Yeah,
Can I get
it's
that
hard
from
to
you?
find. Yeah, I do have that one. And, I wanted to find a better recording of it so I could find the, what do you call them? The words that you read. Subtitles. But I can't even find the version I have anymore. I can't find it anywhere. So, I have a version, doesn't have subtitles.
Okay.
But I have watched it a couple times.
Yeah. As a husband, I wanted to know how much of a head start he had.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Okay. All right. So, in Wisconsin, police are trying to locate a $1,400 bronze sculpture of the character Humpty Dumpty sitting on the toilet.
They're trying to locate it?
Yeah.
Like it was stolen?
It was stolen. Stolen from the art fair on Square Vendor's booth. The vendor said she had seen two men lingering around the booth while she was setting up Saturday, and the sculpture vanished, along with the men, when she left the stand for a short time.
I wonder how big this thing is.
It says the police said they found security camera footage of the two men described by the vendor leaving the area with the sculpture. Yeah, that's a good question. How big is it? I mean, I can't see.
It's bronze.
It's bronze.
I wonder if it's the color bronze or if it's actually made of bronze.
I think it's probably made of
bronze. I'm looking
at
a picture of it.
But I mean, Humpty Dumpty, why would you sculpt Humpty Dumpty on a toilet? I mean,
that's what I was going to say. I wouldn't know why an artist would make it, but I can understand why a bunch of drunken guys would steal it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would take that.
I would be like, okay, look, this is in my basement.
It's kind of a funny looking statue.
It is kind of a funny looking statue. I think
if
you ignore the fact that
she could have gotten more than $1,400 for it. That's the thing.
Yeah,
unless it's real small. Maybe it's like a.
But the thing is, how tall is it? I don't know how tall it is. It doesn't have any. The picture of it doesn't have anything to show you whether it is this a 3-inch tall thing or is it a 3-foot tall thing.
Let's see if we can find another picture of it.
Yeah, let me. I'm gonna.
Wait a minute. Okay, so here we've got the men. And they don't look like they're carrying anything. Okay, we're looking at the men, and I guess it's small enough to put in his pocket.
Oh, okay. So more like 3 inches than 3 feet.
Yeah. Okay.
$1,400.
Well, I wouldn't.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a little steep.
Yeah,
it's not that good.
Okay.
I was thinking it's like a Like a 3-foot statue.
Yeah, like a life size or something like that.
Yeah. Of course, how big is Humpty Dumpty?
Well, he's an egg.
But we know how big a toilet is, so...
Yeah, egg and toilet. I mean, Humpty Dumpty is an egg. Even if he's an ostrich egg, you know, he's not sitting on a toilet like that.
Right.
I don't know. All right.
Well, so. He was like a mutant.
Yeah.
Can you imagine the bird that had to pass that thing?
That's right. All right. Let's see. So here's something, you know, if your kids want something to aspire to, do you remember when we were young and you could, you know, you had the Hot Wheels and you could go out and buy these like flexible tracks that you could make?
Yeah.
Well, somebody put together a Hot Wheels track with 10 loops. So it looped the loop 10 times. Apparently set a world records and is, you know,
really?
they get to be in the Guinness World Record.
Are you kidding me?
No. They've got a picture of it.
I could beat that tomorrow.
I know. Well, you know, that's where it's like, okay, well, I could take that 10
loops. You should have did like 5,000 of them or something. Then I could. But
yeah. It's like, and in fact,
Guinness Books they're taking anything now.
Here's the thing. The way he did it, it's like he's just got it on a board that's sloped down, that each loop is further down on the board, so it keeps picking up momentum as it goes down. Okay, yeah, I can just
nothing special
extend my
that.
board up to the top of my house and get 50 loops instead of 10.
Yeah, it's like the guy didn't have enough money to buy more loops, so he's like, I guess it's going to have to only have 10.
Anyway,
right,
but you know, so go ahead and get a board that's 6 inches longer and do 11 loops, and you'll get to be in the Guinness Book of World Records.
Yeah, you know they're getting a lot of people doing it. I mean.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true.
A couple guys in India. It's just, I don't know. The Guinness Book of World Records has a lot of interesting, neat things. And even if it's not going to be interesting and neat, it should at least be difficult to break the record.
That's true.
You know?
Something that you can't, you know, it's like, okay, I'll just take what they did and extend it by 1 or something like that.
If a pair of twins wants to eat more than those guys and sit on motorcycles and get a picture of themselves, okay, they can do that. But it's got to be hard. They have to eat a lot and get fat.
Yeah, really fat. You know, my son tried to register with the Guinness World Records, and it's like the site was so messed up he couldn't do it. But there's like there's a record for the number of times you can snap your fingers within a minute. And he is like a snapping like machine, and he was able to like double the current world record. But
really?
Yeah. Or something like
Thomas
that.
Does Thomas does that too. Thomas does some kind of weird snapping thing with his hands. And
he does it like...
Yeah, that's what it sounds like.
He double snaps, and he uses both hands, and he does it, you know, back and forth in sequence, and it's like... And, you know... But he tried to get into the Guinness Book of World Records and kind of register it, but the site just completely messed up or whatever.
Yeah. I guess they probably get a lot of people. And there's some group of people or person in charge of what are we going to let in and what are we going to ignore. And there's probably billions of people who have tried to do records.
But the thing is, this is an existing record.
Yeah.
That's what makes me think, well, wait a minute. It was like he went to it and then the sites that he like was brought to were like, you know, 404 errors and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It was like completely messed up.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well.
So maybe it's better now. I'll encourage him to try it out. If he happens to make it in, I'll bring it back up.
Well, maybe we should have, which kid is this?
This is Charlie.
Charlie? Oh. Well, maybe that's where Thomas learned it.
Oh,
or maybe Charlie learned it from Thomas.
Or vice versa.
Thomas does that too.
Exactly.
Next time he's here, we'll get a showdown.
That's right.
Tell him to start practicing.
Whoever wins the showdown, they get to try to register with the Guinness Book next time.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
And finally, 2 Oakland schools, I guess this is Oakland, California, 2 Oakland schools are shut down for cleaning for major flea infestations. Well, okay, I'm not that surprised that we have a lot of fleas in California. But apparently they are shutting down schools for it. What would...
how are they...
Where would fleas infest that they need to shut down the schools?
Yeah, where would they... Okay, it's being caused by raccoons in the area.
Is it really?
Is it illegal to get rid of raccoons in the area?
Yeah, just get rid of the raccoons. It says exterminators have been working for a couple of weeks to eliminate the fleas, but the issue has
I'll tell you what, I've had flea infestations. I don't ever want to go through that again. It is a nightmare getting rid of fleas. Even if you don't want to get rid of the dog. But we had a dog. I used and I was poor at the time, so it was hurting me to buy these expensive flea drops and stuff like that. Put them on the dog. Flea baths as often as I was able to do it without harming the dog because of dry skin and stuff. And we just could not get rid of them. Vacuum every day.
Oh, man.
Have all kinds of poison everywhere. Wasn't killing them. Poison doesn't kill them. Anyway, I found out the easy way to do it. First of all, you get a dog, and there's a pill that they can give them.
Oh.
And the fleas are gone within a day.
A day?
I saw that. Okay, what was happening was I was at work and I was working on someone's printer or something, and they had a TV in the room for people. I don't know why it was there, but on the TV was this Animal Kingdom SPCA who had gotten these 2 puppies. And she's looking at the puppies and she's pointing about how bad the fleas are on them. Mm-hmm. So she gives them a pill and they show a time lapse of 2 minutes and then you see the fleas start dropping. I'm like, holy cows. That can't be real.
Like 2 minutes and it's worked its way into the dog's skin so the fleas are dropping?
Yeah.
Wow.
Either 2 minutes or maybe 20, but I think it was 2 minutes. And I thought, well, if it's that easy, why am I doing all this other crap?
Yeah.
So we took our dog to the vet. I said, do you have a pill that can get rid of... Yeah, we can get... Well, let me have one of those. And it's like, I think it was like $50. And that was it. Our flea problem was over.
That's after you spent
because every flea in
on
the
various
house,
cleaners and shampoos and poisons and dog drops and...
Every flea in the house will go to that dog and die for you. And it's like...
Why can't they make something like that for people to take a pill for bed bugs?
Yeah, that would be cool. That was the thing. We had babies at the time too. And it was like, I would see these fleas get on the baby and I'm going nuts. I'm like, get the hell off my kid.
Yeah.
I couldn't get rid of them. It was a nightmare.
Stuff? Yeah. Wow.
They didn't get sores and stuff, but people with bed bugs do.
Yeah.
I bet there is something they could do like that.
Even if they didn't, I always thought the thing would be, just if you could take a pill and make it so that your blood had something, didn't harm you at all, but like killed the reproductive systems of the bed bugs.
Yeah.
That would be...
Then they would come and bite you and within a short time, they'd be dead. Because if they're not feeding, then they're not, they're not mating until they feed.
Yeah, they lay the eggs after they feed. And, female can feed and then lay like 200 eggs. That's scary.
That's insane.
Yeah, that's why, like when you're trying to get rid of them, if you have one female who's still capable of laying those eggs, you've still got a problem.
You're up the creek, yeah.
And I found, I suffered through the bed bug things, and I found the only way to address it is to go get the high 90% plus isopropyl alcohol, put it into one of those great big yard sprayers, and every single day... lift up your mattresses, spray along the corners of beds and mattresses, along the walls, everything else, in all of the rooms where they're infecting. That's the only way to do it. Every day you got to do it again and again and again. Eventually the alcohol, it dries out the eggs so that they won't hatch, and it kills living bed bugs, but you just got to keep doing it. And eventually they'll go away.
Dale has used something that it's like a $300 product that, not for himself, but he's had clients
because he works
had
like working with PwC and stuff.
Yeah. And I don't know. I don't know if it works. Like if you spray, do you still have a problem a month later, or does it actually kill them? Mm-hmm. I don't know that yet.
Yeah.
I was thinking about training my dog to be able to smell them so that I could rent him out.
Oh, smell bed bug. Thing
because
is,
they have a very distinctive because you got
smell,
housewives.
But
yeah,
I've noticed that they don't really smell until you like smash them.
Oh. Well, I'm talking about a dog, though.
Yeah,
they do use dogs to find them. And there are a lot of worried housewives, and you could say, hey, for $50, I'll come by. Hey, if you have them, the dog will find them.
Yeah.
If the dog doesn't find them, you're safe. And it would let people say, okay, I'm safe. I don't have... Because some people will find any kind of bug and they'll show it. Is this a bed bug? Is this a bed bug? No, that's not a bed bug. That's a spider. But
or that's just a little beetle.
It's a scorpion.
Yeah, that's a scorpion.
Not a
don't
bed
pick
bug.
that up. All right. Okay. Well, anyway, that's apparently schools can have flea problems. Thing is,
where did they get into carpets, and that's where they usually lay the eggs.
Yeah, but that's the thing. I mean, I guess these schools must be different now, especially in California, because when I went to school, there wasn't any carpet.
I don't ever remember, except in the library.
Maybe the library. Yeah, I guess they wanted carpet because you got to be quiet. Yeah. But it's okay if there was a flea infestation in the library, they would just close the library. But throughout the school, it was the hard tile floors.
That's weird.
And I know because after I got out of high school, I went back and I worked for the guy who, ran the janitor stuff that did the cleaning afterwards. And once in a while, we'd empty the classrooms out and have to kind of re-wax the floors and stuff like that.
Yeah. California has weird problems. I'll bet it goes back to some kind of regulation.
Could be. Weren't they the ones? Was
like
it
they're not allowed to kill.
Or was it New York that had the problems
raccoons.
with the certain kinds of weeds that they needed the goats to come in?
Somebody told me about it happening in California, but it was another state. It was in New York that I think they were using them that you reported on.
Okay.
I think.
Okay. Yeah, California has weird problems, usually because of regulations. I don't know.
They do stupid things, and they suffer for it, and it's like, well, just don't do that, and then you won't have this problem.
It's like, the drug that kills fleas is illegal in California.
Yeah.
So we have flea infestations.
Yeah. You know what's weird is we do not have a search button on our podcast. I need to take care of that.
Oh, yeah. Because when we put our descriptions and stuff, people need to be able to go find it.
Because I would put that in the show notes.
About this one time. I want to find that podcast so I can share it with a friend. Yeah. Stuff like that.
I need to do that. Okay. I know what I got to do this week. Meanwhile...
Back at the ranch.
Let's talk about saints.
Saint of the day. All right, who do we have today?
Okay. He's known as Minas of Egypt. Menas of Egypt. Also Mina, M-I-N-A. Minas, M-I-N-A-S. And Mina, M-E-E-N-A. Also known as Abba of Mina. Got a bunch of different names.
Yeah, wow.
The Minas is what his name was. Okay. M-E-N-A-S. His mother and father were having trouble having a child, and she was saying a prayer in front of a icon of Mary, and she was saying a prayer to give her a son, or a child, and she heard the icon say amen. So that's what she named, and that's where his name comes from.
Oh, okay.
Minas.
Which is
for
the
amen.
Egypt, Coptic, whatever for amen.
Yeah.
Interesting. You know, this is like, he was born in what, 285, like late 3rd century, and this concept of praying to Mary was already well established in the church by then. This shows how ancient
it was already there.
The Marian devotions were. Okay, so Minas of Egypt.
Yeah. So his father was one of the rulers in the Roman army, or in Egypt in the Roman Empire, and he died while Mina was very young. He was like 14 years old. Even at that early age, Mina was given command of an army, but as the Diocletian persecution neared, and he heard that Christians were going to be persecuted again, he left the army because first of all, he wanted to pursue life as a desert hermit, and also he didn't want to have to persecute Christians as part of his duty. So he leaves the army, goes to the desert. He's there about 5 years, and he has this vision of angels.
He was a teenager at this time, right?
Yeah, he's young. He's real young.
Okay.
He's in the desert. He's only there for 5 years. He has a vision of angels crowning martyrs, and he wanted to be among them with crowns. And in a voice, he was told that he would get 3 crowns, one for celibacy, one for asceticism, and one for martyrdom. So, he goes to a place called Phrygia and comes out in the middle of, like, there's an arena there where they're holding games, and he comes out and professes his faith, which is what Christians did. You know, they enjoyed some peacetime, I guess, and then they went and professed their faith, knowing that they're going to be tortured. So he's tortured. He wouldn't recant. And guess what? God heals all his wounds. So he gets tortured again.
God really asked these first 3 centuries of martyrs to go through a lot.
Right. He's being burned at the stake, but his body's not burning and he's not dying.
Oh, wow.
The crowd around him sees a vision of Saint Michael around him, and he's talking to the vision, and Saint Michael, the archangel, tells him, which we're going to talk about next week, by the way.
That's right, Saint Michael. Today, by the way, everyone, is the Feast of Saint Michael, but we're going to talk about him next week.
Yeah. Appeared to him and told him that he would finally receive his crown of martyrdom in 4 days. So he's got 4 more days of torture to go.
Gosh, oh my.
When they couldn't kill him with the fire, they tried to poison him, but he would drink the poison and not die. He endured some more torture. Finally, he's beheaded, and finally he dies.
I would be like, if Michael had come and said 4 hours, I would be like,
are you kidding me?
Can't you make it 4 minutes? Oh, gosh.
I'd like to die now.
Yeah, 4 seconds.
It's insane.
Oh,
it's insane. My. His body they tried to burn his body, but it wouldn't burn. They had him on this bonfire for like 3 days straight. Finally, and it wouldn't burn. So a group of Christian soldiers stole the body and took it to Alexandria. The Pope of that time has this vision telling him to take the body and send it out into the Libyan desert on a camel. Which he does. The camel stops near this lake, and I guess there's a desert, and in the middle of the desert, I guess it's like a giant oasis in the desert.
Oh, okay.
But the camel stops and won't move anymore. So they decide this must be where we're going to bury him.
Buried.
So they bury his body there. I guess they set up like a little thing But years later, there's a Roman governor. He's in the area. He's fighting some enemies, and he decides to take the body and kind of use it as, to use the relics as protection, to help stop, to help him in his battles. And apparently it works because he wins all his battles, and he decides to keep the, body. But he happens to be crossing that same spot in the desert where he had dug it up. Mm-hmm. And the camel stops and won't move.
Oh.
They take the body off that camel, put it on another camel. Now that camel won't move. So they're like, I guess
it's time for him to have his final
I guess we're
resting place.
He's gonna be buried here. He's buried there. I don't think there's a church there yet.
Oh, okay.
There's maybe a little,
like a little small shrine or something?
Statue or something. I don't know, shrine. Mm-hmm. But there's not a church there yet. But there are miracles that come from this site. For example, a shepherd was walking by. He was carrying this lamb that had been, kind of torn open. Mm-hmm. And he tripped as he's crossing the spot, and the lamb lands on the ground, and the wound was cured.
Huh. Wow.
So it gets a reputation.
Yeah.
For example, Constantine sends his sick daughter there, and she is cured. You can find a modern site, that lists miracles that people have written in with. And this is not a Catholic site. This is the Coptic Church of
like a Greek Coptic or whatever.
Yeah, it's like the Greek Coptic Church. But even now there are like long lists of modern miracles that people are writing in with still. He is the patron of falsely accused people, peddlers, and traveling merchants. I don't know why any of those are his thing, because I couldn't find any stories relating to any of those. But that's what he's the patron of.
People, peddlers, and what?
Peddlers, traveling merchants, which
peddlers,
is a peddler.
Yeah, same thing. You know, that's interesting.
And falsely accused people.
Our own family has someone in oh gosh, it was like one of Dad's grandpa's brothers or something like that.
Yeah.
In the I don't know if it was the census or maybe it was on his. I think it was in the census or something like that. Anyway, it had listed as his occupation, and it was listed as huckster. Huckster.
What's a huckster?
Well, it's actually a peddler,
like
but it has kind of a bad connotation these days. Like, sort of a swindling peddler.
Okay. Well,
but his patron saint apparently is Saint Minas.
Yeah, he's got a patron. Saint Mina of Egypt. That is his story.
Falsely accused. That's interesting because when you were talking about the Inquisition, and you mentioned how in many cases people who were falsely accused were the ones who were most eager for the Inquisition. It kind of ties in with our main topic tonight.
Even those who were guilty would rather deal with the Inquisition
than with the secular court.
Local ordinaries.
That's right. Yeah. So
died in 309.
309. Okay, yeah. So third century or third century, early 4th century. Wow.
Obviously, his parents in the 3rd century, late 3rd century, were praying to Mary, the Virgin Mary.
That's right.
And
because that's one of the most ancient devotions in the church.
And she granted this miracle of life. And
he was granted a vision of. I mean, he was visited by Saint Michael. Wow. And so September 29th is the feast of Saint Michael. Because by the time this gets out, so I want to say the date, but
right. Yeah.
But yeah, there are a few, miraculous visions of Saint Michael. I did not realize that his is one of those.
Yeah, we've talked about a couple of them so far. St. Catherine of Alexandria.
Yeah.
Who else was it? There was another girl. I can't remember. Maybe St. Barbara.
St. Barbara would be one. Yeah.
St. Barbara. He appeared to St. Barbara, and there was one of the other men that was. It's actually a kid, I think. Abadar and his sister, I think, were told by St. Michael that they would be martyred in the upcoming town or something.
Yeah,
like that.
Go to this town and you'll be martyred, and so they went there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's...
Yeah. I'd be like, go to this town and you'll be martyred there. I'll be like, well, I guess I won't go to that town.
Somewhere else. Oh my, the courage of these saints. I wish I had
we're going to need it soon. Yeah, we're going to need it. But we should definitely start. Our mom, from the time we were kids, kept telling us, you need to read about the saints. You need to read about the saints who died for their faith.
That's
because
right.
You're going to need their strength someday. And now there's kind of a soft martyrdom, and people are cowering.
That's
you know,
right.
It's weird. People are scared to be Christians, but
because somebody might say something bad about you.
Yeah, that is Minas of Egypt.
Minas of Egypt, pray for us.
All right, I think that's all we got.
All right.
Folks, we'll see you next week. Meantime, think about what we said. And as always...
circle those beads, everyone.
Bye.
Goodbye.